Welcome to today's Explainer. All right, everybody, we are officially convening our legal history seminar to establish exactly through what jurisprudential lens we must read the Torah. Now, if you've been following any recent theological debates, you've probably noticed a really popular academic trend. It's this idea that to truly understand biblical covenants, you somehow need to go study ancient Egyptian myths or Canaanite legends of Baal. And in the process, the actual unbroken legal rulings of the Jewish sages just get completely dismissed. So, as your professor today, my goal is to guide us straight through the source texts to discover what the Torah actually commands about its own interpretation. Because as we'll see, preserving legal integrity matters infinitely more than importing foreign mythology.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our syllabus for today. We're going to cover 1. The Masorah Mandate, 2. Rejecting pagan precedents, 3. A case study on the City of Refuge, 4. The Blood Ransom Prohibition, and finally, 5. The Mechanics of Teshuvah.
Starting right off with Section 1, the Masorah Mandate.
Now, the absolute crucial concept we need to grasp first is the Masorah. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, he didn't just hand Israel a scroll, wish them the best of luck, and leave them to, reverse engineer the legal mechanics using Egyptian anthropology. No way! He handed down the written law alongside the oral law. And the Masorah is exactly this. It's the authoritative transmission of that law. Think of it like the constitutional framework you need to actually apply the statutes. The Torah fully anticipated that later generations would have complex legal questions, so it explicitly provided the exact legal mechanism to answer them.
And this brilliant timeline traces that unbroken chain of historical transmission, which is famously recorded in the Mishnah, specifically in Pirkei Avot. It goes from Moses receiving the Torah at Sinai, handing it directly to Joshua, then Joshua passes it to the elders to the prophets, and the prophets hand it to the men of the Great Assembly. Guys, this is not just some boring genealogical list of names. It establishes a living, breathing, supreme court of legal interpretation. It's an unbroken, authoritative chain protecting the integrity of the text from one generation to the very next.
Just look at the explicit mandate here in Deuteronomy 17. We are commanded, literally ordered, to submit to these established, living judges when interpreting difficult legal texts. So when modern teachers decide to just bypass the sages to invent their own mechanics for the Torah, they aren't just, choosing a slightly different commentary. They are actively violating a direct constitutional commandment. We have to read the law strictly through the lens of those officially appointed to interpret it.
Which brings us to Section 2. Rejecting pagan precedents.
So, we have a really stark legal contrast going on here. On the one hand, we have the Deuteronomic mandate, relying on the sages' authoritative rulings to maintain strict legal integrity. But on the other hand, we have this modern academic reliance on ancient Near East methodology. Teachers will actually pull up these ancient Ugrit texts all about cosmic wars and try to map those pagan myths directly onto the Torah. But as students of legal history, we really have to pause and ask a foundational question. Does the Torah actually want us importing cosmic debts and magical blood rituals to explain its laws?
The answer to that is a resounding absolute no. Look at Leviticus 18:3. To read the Torah through a pagan mythological framework is the literal definition of syncretism. It's importing foreign pagan concepts into a covenant that is built purely on justice. Listen, God does not borrow the mechanics of Baal to explain his tabernacle. To teach the Torah through the eyes of the Canaanites is to completely abandon the eyes of Moses, violating this really severe, explicit prohibition. We simply cannot inquire after foreign gods to understand our Creator.
All right, moving to Section 3, let's look at a case study, the City of Refuge. Let's actually apply our legal framework to a highly debated case right now. There's a very popular teaching out there claiming humanity is under this cosmic penalty of death because of Adam's willful rebellion, and it tries to use the Torah's law of the City of Refuge to justify a heavenly blood sacrifice. But hold on, look at the legal distinction. The City of Refuge offers protection only for shagag, an accidental tragedy like unintentional manslaughter. It provides absolutely zero legal shelter for pesha, which is willful, intentional rebellion. So if a modern academic theory claims humanity needs rescuing from intentional rebellion, well, the City of Refuge is legally useless as a precedent. It just doesn't fit.
And that leads us right into Section 4, the Blood Ransom Prohibition. You see, that academic theory of a cosmic blood ransom immediately falls apart when you hit Numbers 35:31. The statute is crystal clear. You cannot accept a ransom for a murderer. Justice in the Torah absolutely cannot be bought off with blood money or some kind of magical substitute. When you abandon the established rulings of the judges, you end up taking a law that was specifically designed to protect an accidental killer from a vengeful family, and you warp it into this bizarre loophole to justify human sacrifice. The Torah strictly forbids it, no exceptions.
So, we have to ask ourselves, what is the actual legal reality of the high priest's death in this context? Well, when we do what we're supposed to do and consult the sages in the Talmud, specifically Makat 11b, the answer is totally straightforward. The high priest's passing is a natural death. He is not a human sacrifice. As the spiritual heart of the nation, his natural passing causes a profound national mourning. And it's this period of deep mourning that shifts the social reality, basically closing the chapter on the accidental tragedy and finally allowing the manslayer to return home safely. It is a brilliant, totally human social and legal mechanism. It is absolutely not a pagan blood ritual.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the mechanics of teshuvah.
Let's examine the jurisprudence here by contrasting the Torah's true mechanics. For unintentional sins, called chet, or ritual impurities, yes, those were remedied by blood sacrifices in the earthly temple. But look at the intentional rebellion side, pasha. Blood was never the mechanism to atone for intentional rebellious sin. Never. The Torah just doesn't teach that an innocent man's blood can somehow be legally applied to cover a guilty man's willful rebellion. The remedy for intentional rebellion is entirely different.
And that specific legal remedy is teshuvah. It's the act of returning, repentance. This is the official prophetic mechanism for bridging the gap between humanity and God after intentional sin. God doesn't require us to go dig up Egyptian ruins or translate Canaanite poetry to figure out how he interacts with his people. The remedy is teshuvah, proving once again that God gives us a direct, beautifully accessible path back, without borrowing a single thing from ancient mythology.
The prophets firmly established this precedent. Just listen to this clear ruling from Ezekiel 18. If a wicked man turns away from all his sins, he shall surely live. Notice what is completely missing from this legal equation. There's no blood. There's no cosmic ransom. It is simply a legally binding return to the covenant. It's exactly as the prophet Hosea pleads with us. We are to take words with us and return to the Lord, offering our lips instead of bulls.
So here is the big takeaway, class. When we bypass the sages in favor of pagan mythology, we strip the Torah of its legal integrity. We turn it into a myth. But God's covenant is not some obscure riddle hidden in the ancient past or locked away in a heavenly tabernacle. The Torah is a self-contained, living, legal document that was entrusted to the judges. The chain of transmission is unbroken, and we must read the text through the strict legal lens that it actually demands.
Don't leave these insights in the classroom. Access the full research archives and scholarly deep dives at mishnahwalk.com.
Follow Yosef for more at mishnahwalk.substack.com.